I think AI in the end will be more of an assistive technology than a controlling technology. It's misnamed. Artificial intelligence is really not intelligent. It's just simply another way of solving a problem, and it will not just take over the world. And people equate artificial intelligence with human intelligence, but it's really not. Artificial intelligence is just another tool for solving problems through software and other tools that are out there. Well, my definition is AI is simply using human-like reasoning to program up a solution to solve a specific problem itself. And artificial intelligence was an unfortunate term that came out that stuck with it for a long time because we haven't gotten a better one. I think after we have a few more successful applications, we might have a better version of what that actually is. But the idea is to take the reasoning process and somehow encapsulate that into coding so that a system doesn't have to have specific coding for every single application. You can use heuristics and other tools to get to the answer, and that's how people think and that's how people work, and therefore if a system can work in that way, it'll be a better system to interface with or to use. And this is just another way of solving problems that may have multiple outcomes or multiple paths, and if you can control that through heuristics in the software, it'll be easier to program down the way or to solve more complex problems.
When you look at the evolution of artificial intelligence since, let's say, the 1980s, how do you think has the perception of AI changed?
Right. So in the 80s, there was a movement toward artificial intelligence. And I was in graduate school at the time, and I put all my elective hours into it, and I wrote a thesis report on it. And I started studying artificial intelligence at the time. And what I found was you needed a tremendous amount of data in order to make that work. And you also needed quite a bit of processing power. And in the mid 80s, we were working on, medium-sized PCs, and that market was just emerging. So there wasn't really a lot of processing power available to us, and there certainly wasn't a lot of data available to us. And AI was very particular about what problems it would solve. Unless it broke down into a very nice tree structure, it really didn't solve it very well. And companies came out with very specific tools like knowledge engineering environments, symbolics, and these very specialized machines and languages like Lisp and Prolog to solve the problem, but they were very arcane, they were very difficult to use. So with a lack of data, with a lack of processing power, a lack of easy to use tools, artificial intelligence didn't go very far. It solved a few issues. It did well with natural language back then. It did well with a couple of other sectors like expert systems and knowledge-based systems, but they always solved things that were very well-defined problems already. If there was any qualitative requirements, it did not do well at all. And so it didn't go very far, and eventually the industry shut down. The other thing I found was that most artificial intelligence projects suffered from a PR problem. Back in the day, if you could solve it with our AI, it was no longer AI. At that point, it was something else. And so any wins that AI may have achieved in the 80s, they lost very quickly because it became its own thing outside the world of AI. And so it was a challenge to get momentum behind it because basically AI was anything you could not solve. And nobody's investing in things you cannot solve. They only invest in things you can solve because they want to make a return. So I always thought that was kind of interesting that AI would set themselves up to fail because basically if it was a winner, it wasn't on their balance sheet. If it was a loser, it was, they were stuck with it. And they were just challenged with, limited power, limited data sets, and limited tools at the time. Well, today there's plenty of processing power. There's more processing power than your mobile phone than there is in the space shuttle. So the idea was there's a lot more technology available for people to use as well. There's also a lot more data sets. There's over 14,000 data sets on the open market out there that people are now accessing and working with and so forth. So having a rich set of data makes a much different use case for how you might work with it as well. And the tools have gotten a lot more sophisticated. The languages and the processing software is much better at working with large data sets and pulling together machine learning tools to make these more reasonable applications. So the tools are just at a much higher level. So people are going to get a lot further with the applications this time than they did last time. The question remains as to how people in the AI industry treat AI solutions. Do they treat them as scientific experiments like they did in the 80s, or do they treat them more as business opportunities? I think that was one challenge in the 80s, is that AI was really this science experiment that if you could solve it, it was no longer interesting to us. It was just a standard business application. But now, if we treat it like business applications are the goal and we make good success with it and track how many jobs they create, how much revenue, how many startups they create, and how much wealth is created, they'll do a lot better from a PR point of view. It seemed like the AI was really driven by the academics in the 80s, and so that was one challenge. Is it was always just about pushing the envelope of technology, but investors want more than just envelopes of technology. They actually want returns, they want businesses, and they want jobs, and maybe this round will be a different one. Well, today you see a lot more either applied academics, or you'll see businesses pushing forward as well. A lot more corporations are investing in AI now than I saw in the 80s. In the 80s, it was all universities and it was government research labs trying to do specific applications. But today I see Fortune 500 companies and corporate venture capital putting money into these things to solve real-world business problems, and they're looking for real-world solutions that will probably turn into a more substantial result for the investors. And if you give the investors a result, you'll get more funding from the investors, and it grows from there.
What are applications of artificial intelligence that you think are promising?
Well, I see a lot of applications for AI out there. They tend to be more assisting humans in certain projects rather than taking over, but they certainly, companies have big problems now because they have large data sets. The experience they had in the company is retiring or leaving, and they have to replace that. And the more you can capture that into a system with technology, the easier it is to leverage across a broader geography. So I see a lot more applications for AI than I did in the past, and it's very interesting to see the corporations getting behind that, as opposed to just academics trying to figure out if that's a possibility or not. And so you'll see people actually doing real world applications around finance, around engineering, around technology applications that require replacing people who are retiring in some cases. So I see a lot of that going on. The blockchain world coming up is a tremendous application of where we'll see AI being used through blockchain in many cases. We have a number of applications going on now around supply chain management. There are certain natural fits for it where you want to capture everybody in a certain ecosystem or a certain supply chain and capture all of the transactions and the history of what's going on. And so we'll see a lot of transactions going on where once you have all your data in one place, say a blockchain, you can then start to apply AI-like tools to it in order to get better results out of it, or better lessons or better facts can be drawn from the blockchain once you have that all that data in one spot. So blockchain is one big one as well. In general, the fintech space is a great opportunity for artificial intelligence because there's a lot of new applications coming out for it. For example, there's very few micropayment systems available in the US, and right now you have to use credit cards. Well, credit cards are a technology from the 1970s that we're still using. And the fintech space is a difficult one to use because it's highly regulated, a lot of entrenched interests, and it's always the last one to move to the next generation of technology. But we're seeing that right now, and we'll see AI be a part of moving fintech to the next one. We have applications where people are using it for checking credits and checking credit worthiness of clients, as well as distribution of payments. There's 13 different payment types out there, and we'll see even many more coming in, especially in the micropayments world, where people will start to use AI to track where payments go, and is that a real payment? One of the biggest issues in the finance industry today is identity management. Are you who you say you are? And you'll see artificial intelligence starting to track that aspect of it, trying to determine if what's coming through the network is really who we think they are, and are they acting the way we think they are. And so there's a lot of applications in that as well. The successes I've seen in AI have always been assistive technologies that solve very straightforward things. They solve the things that other people don't want to do. And so one reason why companies are putting in AI is the workers who did that before are retiring, and the new workers coming in don't want to do that work. And so that's an ideal application for AI, is to go and take their knowledge, encapsulate that into the system, and then have that programmed up to go forward. And then the new generation comes in and works on what they find more interesting in that case. And so it's the mundane things that nobody wants to do is where it gets the most activity, because people will pay for that. And they will also, putting those applications together, they'll find a way to make that a more meaningful solution for the user.
How do you think entrepreneurs and startups are making use of this new opportunity with artificial intelligence?
What startups need is they need technology in order to compete against incumbents. And when you have a breakthrough in technology like artificial intelligence, you now have an opportunity to go out and disrupt the marketplace. And it's giving startups the opportunity to put together new solutions that have a performance increase that companies would pay for and would value. Large companies don't really innovate very well. Even if the opportunity is there, they usually stay with what's been working in the past. And so with startups, they're able to come in and capitalize on that and win customers away. And so AI brings a lot of those elements to the table, whether it be machine learning or data analytics or some other aspects of artificial intelligence, is opening up a whole new range of opportunities for startups to enter the market and grow their business. They're finding niche applications that they can solve with their technology. So they're coming out with point solutions, I think, not major platforms or broader solutions, but very specific things, solving things in the healthcare industry or a financial application for an automotive company or what have you. And so they're taking very specific things that a group of people used to do, and that group is retiring, and then they're now putting that into a startup to take their place, because when that group retires, they don't want to have to go retrain another group of people. They want to just go ahead and put that in software if they can. So you find it in very niche applications that they're doing very well with it, and things that are typically proven science technologies. Natural language processing was a big issue in the 1980s, and they did very well with it. Today we have Siri and Cortana and other applications that were drawn from those research efforts, and you'll find people are building applications on top of those more mature AI technologies, as opposed to advanced technologies that are not quite proven. It's just very expensive to work with advanced technologies because you're doing part science and part application.
There's also this fear of artificial intelligence taking over and, in some sense, outsmarting humans. What's your view on that?
Right. Yeah, the media always plays these things up because they're looking for the exciting story or the exciting game. But the reality is AI is going to be controlled by people, and it's going to, the ones that will get funded and deployed are the ones that really help solve a problem that people don't want to work on themselves. And so in the end, that's mostly the repetitive, redundant tasks that nobody else wants to do. Well, that's ideal for AI to go make those decisions and so forth. And it'll be a better solution for people that way. People think that AI is going to take over the world, but knowing how the investment world works, they only invest in things that are proving a benefit. And so if something's not a benefit, they won't be investing in it. So it won't get very far without the investment to keep it going. And so I think AI in the end will be more of an assistive technology than a controlling technology. It'll be successfully deployed where it's really assisting and helping people do it. And it's misnamed. Artificial intelligence is really not intelligent. It's just simply another way of solving a problem, and it will not just take over the world. And people equate artificial intelligence with human intelligence, but it's really not. Artificial intelligence is just another tool for solving problems through software and other tools that are out there.
Do you think artificial intelligence can help humans conquer outer space and maybe live on Mars? I mean, what are your views of these claims?
Well, we're going to go travel and live on Mars, and that's far-fetched and way out there, and there's There's no food, water, or air, or anything else out there, but we're going to go live there. It's just so far-fetched. And what I think we'll end up finding is that we'll just come up with better technologies to make this a better place on Earth itself. And so existing applications will be more tuned to be more efficient. You look at the ride-sharing companies out there that are now making better use of cars on the road. Automated cars will make better use of the streets and the traffic and so forth. And so putting efficiency into our current systems is where I think AI will have its most benefit. And it's not putting us on Mars. It's not putting us into outer space. It's not the fantastic things that, yeah, they make good movies, but they don't, they're probably not very practical in one sense. We'll run out of money before we get to Mars anyway. So the idea is but we could make a better living for ourselves here because there's so many inefficiencies in our system right now. In the financial system, the transportation system, you look at any system, it can be far improved by just having better computer control, better artificial intelligence-like solutions for it, which are making decisions about how to allocate resources. And right now, there's very little control over that. And so I think there's a lot of money we'll save for that, and a lot of productivity we'll gain from those type of tools coming into place. We see startups coming out with very interesting tools in that direction as well.
When you work with startups, what are some of the things that they could improve in their approach to technology?
Well, we deal with startups, and the biggest challenge we have with technology is users or developers put in technology that they think solves the problem. They don't put in technology that the customer thinks solves the problem. So we want them to be much more customer centric. We want them to have applications. We want customers liking the product so much that they're actually paying for it as opposed to getting it for free or here's what I think it is and not taking the time to go figure out what it really should be, which is not always obvious. It's often unobvious as to what the technology needs to do to solve a customer's problem or where the real problem is. So we want people to be much more customer centric and user centric in their implementation. Most developers are self-centric. They just do what they think is the right way and what they see, and it comes out to be a lesser solution, of course. And then it's tough when you build something and you can't sell it. What happened? Well, you built what you wanted, you didn't build what they wanted. So our rule is sell it first, build it second. If you can't sell it in the first place, you don't need to build it in the second place. But that's more of a practical investor's approach to technology development. You really want to do what you're passionate about because at the end of the day, you're going to be spending a lot of time on it. And the dollar return and the other returns go away eventually, and you're left with the body of work. And if it's what was your passion, well, then it will be fulfilling. If it was not what your passion was, then it won't be fulfilling. So certainly you have to do what you find as your passionate fulfillment in order to be happy at the end of the process because it's a lot of work to go into anything you do.